So as promised, we're going to be doing Godzilla in Marvel Rivals. Basically a concept here that was created by IBI Primus on, well, I guess when I found it on TikTok, but I found it on his Instagram page as well. So go ahead and follow him, look him up. Dude's got some amazing stuff. And yes, I will be doing one for GHIDORAH and my boy Zilla as well. And then I'll be moving on to Transformers characters. So Optimus, Megatron, Grimlock, all that. So with that being said here, we're going to focus on a couple things. One, the story and how I would introduce Godzilla, which will also include the villain. Two, his moveset. Then I'm also going to have to talk about his partner or the character he's going to show up with in more detail. Then I'm going to talk about at least 3 team-ups that he should have. Basically giving him the characters that would I would feel like would fit him, giving his history and how he functions and stuff like that. And in all honesty, just kind of concepts I find very cool and the ways I would definitely write them in the game if Godzilla was ever to appear. I mean, technically he could, because, you know, he does kind of count as a Marvel character in a way, but that's besides the point. So, with that being said here, be sure to grab your cookies, your popcorn, your sodas, everything, because we're going to be here for a good minute talking about how I would do Godzilla in Marvel Rivals, full detail. Let's begin. Now, the first thing we have to talk about is pretty much the story or introduction on how I would actually put Godzilla in Marvel Rivals. Basically, with each character coming from a different verse, almost in some way, they each have a sort of calamity, if you will, or at least like a event that brings them into this world, and then they're basically fighting against a villain. So Godzilla's season, right, would actually be called Gods and Monsters. So which version of Godzilla would I actually be using? Well, I would be using the Rage Across Time IDW version of Godzilla. You see, this one has one of the best concepts I could use ever. The fact that he fought the gods of Olympus. Now, you see, the gods of Olympus in fiction, in general fictional media, have always been represented in many ways. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're evil. Most of the time, they're just really selfish jerks in general. I mean, ask Kratos, right? However, Godzilla in this timeline did not fight his average Greek gods. No. You see, in this universe, Godzilla not only went on a rampage, or, you know, he did his usual thing, right? But he fought the Marvel Greek gods. Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Hephaestus, and, you know, Hermes and all that. So, during this battle, Godzilla managed to actually, you know, take down Mount Olympus. But he did not kill the gods. The gods, in fact, locked in, got themselves together, and they managed to subdue Godzilla. And keep in mind, unlike these other gods here that need prayer, the Marvel ones don't need that. So instead of actually killing Godzilla or making him a weapon that could be turned against him later, Hera actually gives Zeus an idea. This idea is to actually siphon off the power of Godzilla into the gods, thus making them more powerful. Zeus, liking this idea, has Hephaestus actually, begin to create a power siphoner for Godzilla. So Godzilla himself is kept in this chamber, specifically designed to hold him. So Godzilla, any effort, any, movement, any sort of attacks here drains him of this energy. And the gods of Olympus pretty much use this to upgrade themselves into their more cosmic-like states. So you might ask yourself, does that mean the gods of Olympus are the villains? Yes, but again, it is going to mainly focus on Zeus, who is the most powerful of the gods. The head honcho, if you will, right? And this is where he's actually going to be saved by Jane Foster Thorne. You see, in this timeline or in this universe, when the gods of Olympus actually got Godzilla's power, they decided that there should be no other beings with power other than them. So they eradicated a large majority of Earth's heroes, at least the ones that were a threat. But again, some of the more lower tier heroes like Spider-Man, Daredevil, Punisher, and characters of that caliber survived. But Jane Foster, finding Thor's hammer, took it and actually became, well, the mighty Thor himself. And so, after helping Godzilla, she and the like of Shao Lao from another dimension would actually orchestrate a plan to free Godzilla. This would ultimately work, and Godzilla is now in the Marvel Rivals game, or at least in Marvel Rivals along with the other heroes. It is going to take him a while for him to really trust people again, but again, working alongside the heroes and even other monsters that seem pretty friendly, and he's able to communicate with them pretty easily, he is pretty much a powerhouse in general. Keep in mind, his position is going to be a vanguard, meaning he's going to be a tank, a very powerful one as well. So, with that being said here, yeah, that honestly would conclude it for the story. I really don't see too much to talk about with it. I mean, that's it. Godzilla literally fought the gods of Olympus, but instead of winning like he normally does, he actually loses and gets captured, saved by Jane Foster Thor, and now has to fight a much stronger, amped up version of the gods of Olympus that pretty much have his power. So, yeah, I think that would honestly explain it. But let's actually talk about some ways I would actually handle the maps and stuff, right? Because considering the fact that each season does bring new maps. For starters, Monster Island would actually be a convoy mission, and this would actually be one of the funnest maps in general. It's a jungle, beach, and a volcano with a few swamp-like areas. So imagine starting off at point 1, but you gotta make your way to the volcano in order to, I guess you could say, in order for this to work. Maybe even the opposite way. Maybe I would add Mothra's Temple or something like that. You could also have certain Marvel Rivals rendition of monsters in the background, like Humonga, Sanda and Garaya, Rodan, maybe Mothra as well, or at least adult Mothra and stuff like that. Maybe Varan and Manda. I would definitely have those monsters in there. But, well, I guess I can't have Mothra in this one because, again, she's actually going to be what you're transporting. Yeah, so basically you're going to be going from point A to point B with a few twists and turns here. And I would actually have this area have a lot more choke points, but they're even, right? Basically, these choke points, or these points where both sides can set up, are basically going to be 50-50. Meaning if a team overtakes it, they have it, but they have to adjust more around it so that it's not very lopsided here. Then you also have what they're transporting, Mothra's egg. Now, this is actually going to end in two ways. If you are defeated, or if the enemy team wins, they actually wind up summoning Batra's larva instead, and then he'll go into a moth form in an instant, right? But the winning team, or the, I guess you say, the defending team, right, or the attacking team, whichever one, actually gets Mothra for their win. So basically, depending on the results, you either get Mothra or Batra. It's going to be cool either way. Now, the next domain I would definitely have, or the next map I would have, is definitely the Mount Olympus. And this one would be a domination map. Basically, you're going to different areas around Mount Olympus, and you and your, team basically have to dominate certain areas. Keep in mind, Marvel's Mount Olympus is actually almost like a city, if you will, because, again, it's gods. It's Marvel gods. They got to have some good structural stuff right here. So one of the few areas I definitely would have would be the Gladiator Arena. Then we could have the Throne Room as well be a domination area. And then finally, maybe Hera's Garden. I think somewhat similar to Asgard, if you will, but I think it would just be great having these areas, and maybe in the background of certain areas, you could actually have GHIDORAH and another monster duke it out. Maybe they're fighting against gods, because again, they see the gods of Olympus as threats. Maybe have Space Godzilla in there. I know it's kind of like, oh, well, they're not show era, but keep in mind I am using the Rage Across Time version of Godzilla here. So, Ghidorah, maybe Monster X. I mean, I wouldn't mind that as well here. And the results of each match could actually, depend on who wins. If the one side wins, they actually get a King Ghidorah victory. The other side wins, they get a Space Godzilla victory over the other monster. So, in all honesty, again, something just creative and fun to see for both sides of teams. But now let's move on. Now we're at the point where we're talking about the King of Monsters moveset, and I ain't gonna lie, this was actually pretty good. But for his basic melee attacks, I actually do think I was thinking like maybe some grapples and throws and stuff, but I think a couple claw swipes and then a stomp into a tail swipe would honestly do wonders for Godzilla for his basic attacks, right? And considering he is a tank, he's going to cause a lot more damage. And considering he also has claws as well, it's also going to cause a lot more damage. And the tail ability could have a knockback, believe it or not. I think that would actually be great. Considering Godzilla's overall strength level is considerably equal, if not stronger than that of the Hulk, you could actually make the argument he's going to be doing a lot of stuff that he shouldn't. But let's talk about his first move, right? That being the Atomic Breath. I think it's pretty simple that the Atomic Breath is going to have to be a standard move of Godzilla, and I don't think anyone should be complaining about that. But how would I make this work, right? Well, originally, when I made this kind of video on TikTok, I had Godzilla's Atomic Breath basically just shoot out and have it work like Iron Man's Unibeam, where he can just simply shoot it and move it around, right? However, I think having it being a powerful beam that can knock back opponents rather than just one that just, blasts his opponents and be done with it, actually would speak more volumes to how powerful Godzilla is. So imagine this atomic beam that does damage and pushes you back at the same time. I swear it would be an absolute nightmare. And it could also damage foes that have defenses as well, considering it did that to Magneto. Anybody with, maybe some sort of ultimate defense or ult force fields could definitely prevent most of the damage. But again, it could cause a great ton of it. So basically, Godzilla's Atomic Breath is just going to be a vastly powerful move here. And I think it would be funny if there's like sort of a build-up or a charge stage where you could hold it for like 5 seconds and then maybe just launch an opponent out of the area somewhere, or just launch the opponent into a wall and just be kind of done with it there. But again, this would definitely cause a lot of damage and definitely take out a lot of DPS as well. But now let's move on to a second move I like to call the Colossal Slam. Now, one of Godzilla's many moves now is the fact that he actually likes to grab his opponents and slam them. Even in comics, where I never thought he would be able to do it. It's like this man jumped in the air as Gigan was trying to get away, grabbed him and said, "Nah, buddy, you coming right back down here," and just slammed him, right? This is important because I feel like this move should work on everyone. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Godzilla should be able to grab somebody and slam them. But I think I have a better way of having this work, right? Godzilla's basic move to get into this is a tackle. He grabs and tackles, or he basically rushes forward and tackles his opponent, then performs the slam here. Basically a combination of the thing, but again, it's where he tackles and grabs you and then body slams you into the ground here. This is actually going to be pretty important because I think I would even have him be able to bypass the thing's unyielding spirit passive ability. Now, if you guys don't know what that is, the unyielding spirit is a passive ability from the thing that means he cannot be knocked back at all. He can't even be spat out by Jeff or launched by Jeff when he spat out because, again, Jeff's just not that strong enough. Or, again, the ability even defends him from such attacks. Meaning that Godzilla will actually be able to not only bypass this, but it makes Thing more vulnerable on the field if he's around. Basically, with Godzilla there, you can knock back the Thing and maybe get him away from people that, in all honesty, he ain't got no business really attacking. Like, you want to get him away from your healers, done. Away from a specific DPS, done. You can just make it work in general. But now, I think his final move should definitely be his atomic or his nuclear pulse. This is actually going to be a defensive move. and is going to have a great knockback here. However, I'm not going to have it be like a massive AoE. No. I'm going to save that for his ultimate, right? And this is where I would definitely have it be a defensive move that's meant for him. It's going to be kind of like a shield, so it's going to have more defensive purposes and offensive purposes. But considering the fact that the nuclear pulse is still an attack, it's definitely going to it's definitely going to be able to it's definitely going to cause some damage, is what I'm trying to say here. Excuse me. So yeah, the nuclear pulse is definitely going to be able to cause a lot of damage on the battlefield that will likely render a lot of opponents unconscious, if not just knock them away. And if you are standing near a a drop point and something like that, I think that would be an excellent way for you to knock back an opponent here, or kind of have it be like Doctor Strange and just kind of use a quick burst of damage and be done with it. But now let's talk about his ult. I like to call Cataclysm. This is where Godzilla overloads his nuclear energy and goes into his fusion mode, right? So when he enters his fusion mode, he's got the option to use his atomic breath, or his red spiral ray, I should say, right? But this move here is going to be kind of similar to his Monsterverse version, where he lets out 3 thermonuclear pulses. So this is how the move is going to start off here. He increases his body temperature to that critical mass level and then lets out a roar that kind of shakes the entire battlefield. Then he's going to launch, basically walk forward or kind of like walk down the enemy team, and then he's going to hit it with 1, 2, 3 nuclear pulses, right? But the third one is such a buildup, it's just going to blow everywhere. All right, it basically, even if you try to run away, it's going to get you. Kind of like Phoenix's AoE, but a lot more deadlier, right? But that's honestly going to do it for Godzilla's moveset. That's how I would honestly make his moves work in Marvel Rivals. And now we can move on to his partner, Jane Foster. Now, Jane Foster Thor is actually a pretty interesting one. I actually had to, really think about and really, I guess you could say, study how I would make her different. I'm not sure where she would really fit in between the strategist and duelist, because again, I would likely make her a tank that's just simply better than Thor. Oh wait, I did say strategist and duelist, didn't I? Vanguard and duelist. I'm so sorry. But again, I don't know how I would actually put her. I do think Jane Foster Thor should actually be better than Odin's son. I honestly think that, because again, just like in the comics, she stated to be superior to the actual Thor, or at least in that time period, because again, he was unworthy, and Mjolnir said, nah, like your girlfriend over here. But most of her attacks I can actually see being based off the God Tempest here. She should be able to create tornadoes, hurricanes, and whirlwinds. Have her focus on more the elemental aspects of Thor rather than being the physical. Now, again, her basic attack should be some physicals here, because again, she is going to hit like a tank, no pun intended here. But again, I do think Jane Foster Thor does have the potential to be in Marvel Rivals. And in all honesty, for her ult, I think I would have her unleash the full might of the God Tempest on somebody. Whoever gets caught in that radius or gets caught in that blast is just going to be, it's going to be devastating. In all honesty, I think I would just have it be someone similar to like a large AoE electrical explosion, but it's followed by things like tornadoes and hurricanes that kind of surround the battlefield. So even if you try to get away, you get caught up in there and then just straight up annihilated in general. So yeah, it's kind of funny. It would be a funny way for Jane Foster's ultimate to be on the battlefield. She would probably have one of the most wide ranged and one of the most overpowered AoE attacks in the game, because starts off with a simple lightning storm, goes in and just causes multiple tornadoes around so that you can't even get away properly. But in all honesty, that's how I would do Jane Foster Thor if she was in this season of Marvel Rivals, or in this, fictional or, made up season of Marvel Rivals of Gods and Monsters. But now let's move on to the final part. Finally, we have the best part of all, the team ups. How would I have Godzilla incorporate his own powers, abilities, and knowledge to actually benefit the Marvel rivals. Now, let's talk about the first one I like to call the Gamma King. Hulk gives Godzilla some of his blood to increase his physical might. And believe it or not, I think this is pretty simple. We've seen this happen before in Godzilla, well, Godzilla vs. Hulk in the latest Godzilla run, where this takes place in the 1970s, where Hulk, I believe, first appeared, or at least started to appear a lot more often. Or, during the classic days era. You guys get what I mean, right? So, Hulk gave Godzilla some of his blood to deal with a very powerful or a very amped up version of GHIDORAH, excuse me. Now, this version of Godzilla would be able to do the very same thing, utilizing the ultimate form as a buff. This means Godzilla's ultimate would be nullified entirely, and he gets his own hulked out state where he's able to deal a lot more damage, and he can even use his atomic breath as well. Next team up, I have the God of Oblivion, where Hela sees Godzilla's untapped potential for destruction and gives him a small portion of her power to unlock something terrifying. This Godzilla, or at least this move for Godzilla, would actually give Godzilla the power over death. He would actually be able to use Hela's own, I guess you could say, her ultimate attack where she launches flaming skulls or death skulls at people. He would actually be able to do this as a basic attack, but this ultimately replaces his atomic breath for a little while. So after the 20 seconds or maybe the 15 seconds are up, your atomic breath pretty much just comes back and you're allowed to use this again. Keep in mind, these flaming skulls, or these death skulls if you will, are coated in atomic energy, meaning they'll cause twice the damage that they did before. Now, I definitely thought about giving Godzilla the necro energy and stuff like that, where he could just launch this death-like atomic breath that would just eradicate everything in his vicinity, but I kind of felt like doing something a little different. Able to launch 3 death skulls at least for the 20 seconds that provided, so you're gonna have to use that very smartly. And last but not least, we have Monstrosity, where Godzilla teaches Namor on how to fully control his sea monsters and how to use them effectively. And this is going to apply to the true form or the true size of Monstro, who, believe it or not, I didn't think would have gotten popular like this over the years because of how the whole squid thing works, right? So Monstro, or Namor, would actually have the ability to summon the true size of Monstro's tentacles in order to come out and attack his opponents. Basically, think of like the Aquaman Injustice 2 move, where he's actually able to summon the octopus tentacle through like a water portal and just comes to grab and slams his opponent. Basically, Monstro's tentacle will target one person on the battlefield and grab them and basically bring them in, getting an instant KO. Meaning you're going to have to be on your feet and basically be able to, be on your toes and be quick thinking about this here. Because again, if Monstro grabs you, that's it. Doesn't matter if you're a tank. Doesn't matter if you're a flyer, okay? Doesn't matter if you're a healer. The best way you could do is get out of the radius circle before Monstro grabs you. Meaning it's not entirely unavoidable. But again, it is going to get people to complain a lot about this situation. But, yeah, that's honestly going to do it for Godzilla here. Having Hulk for the Gamma King, the God of Oblivion with Hela, and then finally Monstrosity with Namor. In all honesty, I think that Godzilla would be a perfect DLC character for Marvel Rivals. But now you guys understand, this is how I would use him if he was in Marvel Rivals. So be sure to comment down below, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And I'll see you guys for the next one, which will be King Ghidorah and then Zilla. Then we'll be moving on to Transformers and then Capcom characters. Peace.